How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hip Drop Podcast. Lucas and I are back to recap what happened in Week 11. Well, one thing that did happen was the Chiefs laid an absolute egg in Denver, and their season is on the ropes. Lucas and I will go more in depth on that tomorrow. Our Chiefs rant, which we've had one too many of those this year, will take place in tomorrow's episode. We'll briefly rehash the game, just as we will every other game this week, just as we do on every Tuesday episode. We'll start with the game between the Patriots and the Jets. We'll end with last night's game between the Cowboys and the Raiders. And then, of course, we'll do our typical weekly big picture episode on tomorrow, which we do every Wednesday. But first of all, Lucas, how you doing on this Tuesday, November 18th? The weather's starting to turn a little bit here in Nebraska. So how you been?
I am going. I want to keep a positive attitude. So I'm going to say I'm going. I just took a nice warm shower. So
Yeah,
I just
I'll
want
do
to
that afterwards. I didn't have
stay
time to do that
positive.
because of work, but yeah, no, they'll feel good. And then
Serenity now. Remain positive.
oh, for sure. That's what we'll do in our recap episode. I don't think we'll be as positive tomorrow when discussing that team in Kansas City, given the way that they played this year and the possibility of them not going to the playoffs getting bigger and bigger by the game. But we'll start, Lucas, last week in the AFC East between a team that's actually playing well this year and the New England Patriots. They win their eighth straight game. They beat the Jets 27-14. They improved to 9-2. They are currently the 2 seed in the AFC playoff picture. The Jets, after a nice little 2-game winning streak, come back down to earth a little bit. They fall to 2-8. Drake May was very efficient in this one. Travion Henderson was really the engine on the Patriots offense. He ran for 2 touchdowns. He caught another. He played really well. He's really starting to come on. The rookie running back out of Ohio State. New England defensively, outside of the first drive, played pretty well against a pretty punchless Jets offense that did not have Garrett Wilson. Really was Breece Hall or nothing, which is what the Jets will be probably for the rest of the year. And Justin Fields played like Justin Fields. He was horrible. He lost a fumble. He had less than 100 yards passing going into the fourth quarter again. He threw 1 touchdown, ran for another. It wasn't all bad, but it was mostly bad. And that, barring injury, is his last start for the Jets this season as he got benched for Tyrod Taylor. I feel like this is a move that should have happened a while ago. Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Justin Fields is. But the Jets pull the plug on the Fields experiment, and anyone who watched this game could see why. And the Patriots, Lucas, continue to roll. They are continuing to make a case that they are legitimate contenders in the AFC. And given the landscape of the AFC, I don't think that's completely unfounded. Drake May continuing to play good, efficient football. Really, really nice game for him. New England defensively doesn't have a ton of stars, but I mean they're doing enough. And they did what they had to do. They beat a bad team at home, and they clinch a winning season, their first winning season since 2021. So, what are your thoughts on this game that happened last Thursday?
I mean, it went pretty much like I expected. I mean, I thought the Patriots would cover the big spread, and they easily did. I think Justin Fields, yeah, I think it's over. I think it's over for him as like a guy who could potentially start. I think right now he's gonna have to like kind of like do what Sam Darnold did and go be a backup for a little bit, and then maybe get another chance in 3 years. And the Patriots, I think out of all the AFC teams leading their division, they have the best quarterback. So I guess you could say they're kind of the
Yeah,
big team out of the AFC right now. You could make that argument. Who knows if they'll stack up because their schedule has been fairly soft for the most part. We'll see if they get tested, but they did beat Buffalo. They did beat Tampa in Tampa. Both those games on the road. So hats off to them. And for the Jets, the ethical tank is over. They're going to put Tyrod Taylor in. He is the better quarterback. I think right now they're kind of locked into a bottom 5 pick. We'll see what they do with those extra picks in the offseason. But I think even Aaron Glenn had enough of Justin Fields, and they need to go with the objectively better quarterback for right now.
for the rest of the year, yeah. And look, Tyrod Taylor, look, say what you want about him. He is limited. He's an older quarterback. He's like what, 36. He's been in the league for a while. But he's a solid passer. He's a better passer than Fields is, which is a pretty low bar, admittedly. But he at least gives them a better chance to be competitive and at least win some morale games. The problem with the Jets, like they do have extra picks, but there's so many bad teams. I don't know how good of a pick they're going to have. I mean, last year they went 5-12 and had the 7th pick because the amount of bad teams is pretty substantial. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the year. Sorry, I had a weird little thing in my throat there. And the Patriots, look, they're the hottest team in football. Them in Denver the two hottest teams in football right now. They continue to roll, and they head to Cincinnati that next week, take on the Bengals, which we'll give a prediction for tomorrow. All right, last international game, Lucas. The Dolphins and the Commanders. The Dolphins win their third of the last four games. They win 16-13 in overtime. They improved to 4-7 going to their bye. And the Commanders' season from hell just continues 3-8 a year after being in the NFC Championship game. An ugly football game, not unexpected between these two teams. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this. Neither of these teams are really going anywhere this year. I mean, Tua was not great at all in this game. Marcus Mariota was pretty bad as well. Just a bad football game between bad football teams. Somebody had to win, and the Dolphins did. And all of a sudden, you look at the Dolphins, say, okay, maybe they can be semi-competitive down the stretch. I doubt it. I don't really see it, although their schedule isn't super hard. At least it's good for morale, I guess. It shows Mike McDaniel still has the locker room. I said this last week. And the Commanders, like, if you're a Commanders fan, you're just waiting for this season to be over at this point. Just a brutal 2025 season after such a promising season a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of proved that last year was kind of a fluke. The
Yeah.
Commanders in a way. I mean, the NFL Stock Exchange released a podcast yesterday where they fixed the Commanders and they kind of discussed what happened. They just did a very poor job team building this team. Like, on one hand, it's not their fault because Adam Peters inherited a mess, like, from the Ron Rivera era, and they just basically gutted every single draft pick that was picked under Ron Rivera, and so that left the roster with no depth, and they basically had to backfill it with a bunch of like veterans. So they have the oldest team in the NFL this year, and are scheduled to have the oldest team in the NFL next year. They have a lot of cap space, but the reason they have a lot of cap space is because they don't have any players signed because a lot of their veterans are signed on 1 or 2 year deals, and they also traded several draft picks for Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil, so they're expensive, they're old, and they only have 4 picks. They don't have a second round pick or a 4th round pick. So if you're Washington, if you're a Washington fan, almost got to root if they lose a bunch of games, so they maybe have a bottom 5 pick or a top 5 pick, trade down, recoup some capital, and then rebuild this roster with a bunch of depth, a bunch of young depth. And just on the game itself, it seems like both teams made some very, I'm going to say, controversial 4th down decisions late in this game. The Commanders went for it on 4th and goal. I'm pulling up the game right now. Commanders went for it on 4th and goal on the Miami 1. Marcus Mariota threw an incomplete pass. That was when the game was tied with 6 minutes left. Dolphins went for it on 1st and goal at the 1. Ollie Gordon got stuffed, and so that was with less than 2 minutes to go in the game. So pretty bold decisions by both those teams. They got burned. We'll talk about another team that got burned by their 4th down decisions later in this episode. And yeah, and then the Commanders missed the game-winning field goal at the end. Marcus Mariota, first play of the overtime, throws a pick. And the Dolphins basically just run it out to get the win. I mean, Washington, almost got to hope you're going to lose because you're not going to make the playoffs. So I'm a believer that once you're kind of out of the playoffs, and like unless you're trying to like build up a winning culture, you need to start losing as many games as possible. And I think Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have enough rope to where I think they could go 4-13 and not get fired. So
yeah,
I'm not saying they should lose games on purpose, but it might be almost the healthiest thing for their team if they do finish 4-13, 5-12, get the 5th or 6th pick instead of like winning a few games and getting maybe the 12th pick in a draft that doesn't have a lot of talent. So you're almost better off getting the higher pick, trading down, recouping assets, rather than just winning and then getting stuck with the 12th pick in a draft where having the 12th pick is almost like having the 18th pick most years.
For sure. And look, Peters and Quinn are safe. I mean, they were a game away from the Super Bowl, 9 months ago? Like, they're not going anywhere. I will say this though, and I may have alluded to it, and this is like, I picked Washington to make the playoffs, and like, they've been killed by the injury bug. Of course, Jaden Daniels being the most notable part of that. I mean, Deebo Samuel's missed time. Terry McLaurin's missed a bunch of time. I hated their offseason. I thought their offseason was really, really bad. Like, that Javon Kinlaw contract makes no sense at all. The Deebo Samuel trade, like, Deebo Samuel's just not that good anymore. Like, I know they didn't give up a ton for him, but like, it's just not as a meaningful addition, in my opinion. Just they had a bad offseason. And we'll see if Adam Peters can kind of rectify it. Because look, with the season they had a year ago, they've given themselves some leeway to have a bad year this year. And it's just they're just not going anywhere. And if you're Washington, you're like, all right, flush it, move on. We'll get Daniels back next year, and it's on to 2026. And for Miami, I mean, I guess it's good for the culture that they're winning games. But I don't know if that gets them anywhere. But we'll see how the rest of the season goes for the Miami Dolphins. They're of course on a bye next week. All right, next game, Lucas. Down to the NFC South. Panthers Falcons. The Panthers beat Atlanta in overtime 30-27. They improved to 6-5. This is the most wins the Carolina Panthers have had in a season since 2022. They won 7 games that year, above 500, a better record than a certain team that plays in Missouri, Lucas. I might add that. The Falcons, just a nightmare of a season. It looked promising at one point. They get that big win over Buffalo. They literally have not won a game since then. They fall to 3-7. But the big story, Lucas, is the performance of Bryce Young. Just a week ago, you and I were kind of putting dirt on the Bryce Young experiment, and he responds by going out there and throwing for 448 yards, having a really nice performance against Atlanta, to really kind of at least give himself some breathing room in terms of if he's the guy in Carolina, at least for the foreseeable future. Another big story is Michael Penix Jr. He might have had a season-ending injury in this game. It looks like he might not play again in 2025, which is pretty unfortunate. But Penix was not exactly playing well this season. A very disappointing season for him. I thought he showed some promise at the end of last year. Just couldn't put it together here this season. So it will be the Kirk Cousins show for the rest of the way. Cousins came in. Admittedly, I didn't watch a ton of this game live. A lot of it was back on rewatch. Cousins couldn't do anything in overtime. Carolina gets the ball. They kick a game-winning field goal, and they get it back above 500, and they're firmly in the playoff race, which is shocking to me. But the big story is Bryce Young. I mean, he was excellent in this one, made a bunch of huge throws, and it wasn't fake stats either. Like, it was a legitimately great performance. So, Lucas, I mean, you and I a week ago were like, Bryce Young, he just doesn't have it. He's just not a good quarterback. I still don't think he is. Like, he just hasn't had enough of these performances to say with confidence. But like, where are you at with this Bryce Young thing? Because it feels like he has one of these games like once every 4 weeks. You're like, okay, maybe there's something there, and then he responds by throwing for less than 200 yards, throwing bad picks, and scoring 10 points in a loss. Just there's no consistency, but it feels like the high points are they're they've been present enough over the last year where it's like he can tease you a little bit, and this was one of those games.
Yeah, this
Very
is his
bad.
best game of the This was his best game of the season. I still think Carolina needs to come up with a plan B next year. Like, if they want to go into next season with Bryce Young as the starting quarterback, that's their prerogative. They need to have a better backup plan than Andy Dalton. Like, they just I am not moved by Bryce Young having one good game. He was horrible the last 2 weeks, and he was probably flat out. He was bad in the third to last game they had against the Jets, even though they won that game. He was pretty good against the Cowboys, but he's had 2 or 3 good games this year. Every other game he's been bad. I am not moved. Like, I don't think the Panthers are going to make the playoffs. Again, Panthers need to come up with a plan B. Michael Penix was actually playing well in this game until he got hurt. Kind
He
of
was, yeah.
unfortunate. I think Atlanta would have won this game if he played. Now he's out for the year. Another knee injury. Fortunately, I do believe it's not the knee he blew out. It's not the knee in which he blew out his ACL twice in college. So I think it's his right knee that he injured, if I remember correctly, but it was not the same knee he injured twice in college. So I don't think it's going to be career threatening, but it's kind of unfortunate. He's like one of the most injured starting quarterbacks in the NFL, just in terms of factoring all the injuries he's had throughout college in the NFL.
Yeah, just not a good deal. And he is an older player for a guy in his second year. He's what, 20? I believe he's 25. And he was having a disappointing season. I mean, he's a guy who has a great arm, but is not particularly accurate. Is not consistent enough, but like he's certainly better than Kirk Cousins. I don't want to watch Kirk Cousins play football for a month. It's just sad. It's just watching like an old dog watching Kirk Cousins play. But that's what we're gonna get. And his first game his second game, actually, the Miami game was his first one, will be against New Orleans next week. Atlanta, like, yeah, they're done. It's over. And Raheem Morris, it's probably over for him as well, barring a drastic turnaround. But good for the Panthers. I mean, Dave Canales deserves a lot of credit for having that team competitive this year. All right, moving on to the next game. Sticking in the NFC South, the Buccaneers lose their third out of 4 games. They fall in Buffalo 44-32. Crazy game, multiple lead changes. But the big story was the performance of Josh Allen. Josh Allen bounces back in a huge way, scoring 6 touchdowns, 3 passing, 3 rushing. He made an insane throw to Tyrell Shavers for a long touchdown pass. Not every former MVP quarterback can make long touchdown passes, but Josh Allen certainly can. Baker Mayfield, I thought played well. I don't think he's the reason they lost. He did throw a bad interception to Cole Bishop. That was pretty costly there. So the Bills, like, I mean, they had to win this game because if they want any shot, because it keeps up the belief they can win that division if New England slips up a little bit. Of course, they play each other again later on. Um, this was a win that shows you the good side of the Bills. Where like, yes, Josh Allen can put the cape on. This team will score a bunch of points. Now, defensively, they still have their issues. That's well documented. And I still don't fully trust their coaching staff. But if Allen plays at that level, this team could beat anybody. And Tampa's a good team. I know they've hit a wall recently, but they're a legitimately good football team that's going to win their division. And the Bills went out there and scored 44 points. And Allen showed why he was the MVP last year. Where it's like, okay, our receivers are not that good. Our defense is not that good. I'm going to go out there and show everybody why I am who I am and win this football game. And look, Tampa, I don't think it's a disaster for them. Like, you're losing to a really good team on the road. I mean, 3 of their last 4 losses are to Detroit, New England, and Buffalo. It's not like they're losing to bum teams. But I think it's more about the Bills showing, like, yes, this is a version of the Bills that can do something in Jan. Now, defensively, again, big issues. But if Allen can play at that level, this team is high of a ceiling as anybody. Like, the Bills' A game is as good as any team in the NFL, and they showed it here against Tampa.
Yeah, it started out very rough. It looked like I was going to be right
that
early
interception
on.
was terrible. That interception was one of the worst plays of his career.
Yeah, and then it sucks that Tampa could not punch it in there, get 7 points, only got 3. I think kind of another turning point of the game. Josh Allen throws another interception. Bills had 3rd and 5 on the Buffalo 43, and Baker Mayfield throws an incomplete pass to Cade Otton, and they decide to punt, and the Bills go down the field 92 yards in 4 plays. I think that's a situation where I tend to be more aggressive than the average person. I would have gone for it on 4th and 5. You're in Buffalo territory. You have a good offense. You're facing a defense that's not exactly good. It's at home, so it's better, but I would have gone for it there. Hindsight's 2020, but the Bucs are up by 3 points. If they get that first down, they have momentum. They go up by 10 points. Maybe the Bills don't have time to go down the field because at the time there was a minute 17 left on the clock, or like a minute 20. They had 80 seconds left. Yes, Todd Bowles may have been willing to play like, hey, we'll just pin him down. We'll just they'll run the clock out, and we'll go to the second half. They still get the ball. I would have just gone for it. I still would have gone for it. I don't care about the situation. Kind of a momentum turner, and the Bucs just weren't the same after that. Buffalo, I never quite jumped off the train with them. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they certainly have a lot more faith in the public than they did a week and a half, 2 weeks ago before the Chiefs game. They just got to beat the Patriots, but they play the Patriots in Foxborough off New England's bye, so good luck to them. I think Buffalo's going to be in the playoffs. They're not going to miss the playoffs, but at the same time, they're going to be as dangerous as any team in the AFC. I mean, if other than the Chiefs, like, they have a chance to win the division. They have Josh Allen. Like, if the Chiefs don't make the playoffs, I'm probably going to pick Buffalo to come out of the AFC no matter what seed they are.
Yeah, and of course, if you remember, I picked them to win the Super Bowl in our preseason predictions. So like, I was a believer in this team going into the year. And look, I thought Todd Bowles coached a really poor game. This was Jets Todd Bowles. I thought some of the decisions he made was very, very puzzling and ultimately cost them. And Lucas, before we move on to this next game, this might be an uncomfortable conversation, but you and I kind of discussed it. I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to say Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL at this point, as of right now. Are you there?
No, but I am at the point where I'm not gonna like sit here and be like offended if anyone else has Mahomes as someone else other than Mahomes number one, because it's been a year and a half since he's played like an MVP, and he hasn't had an MVP like performance this year for the most part. So
No, I mean,
I think
statistically, he's had some big games, but I mean,
I
yeah.
don't think it's past the eye test for me. He's not my number one, but at the same time, like I think the gap is pretty much gone. Like, he pretty much used up all the margin for error. So if someone else has Allen or Lamar Jackson number one, I'm not going to sit here and call you crazy. That's perfectly valid. Mahomes is kind of blew his lead, if that makes sense.
And look, I mean, like I said, like, Brady wasn't number one every year. Like, that's the thing. Like, it happens. It's fluid. And look, Josh Allen's obviously improved. And I just think the way Allen has put that team on his back in some games this year, like this game, the Baltimore game in week 1, I just think it's better than anything Mahomes has done for the last really since the start of 2024. Mahomes is still great. Like I still think it's a 1A, 1B situation, but I just think Allen has been the better of the two guys. He just needs a ring to solidify it, in my opinion. And he's gonna have an opportunity this year. We'll see what happens. All right. Next game, Jags Chargers. My goodness, I did not see this coming. Lucas did. Lucas picked the Jags. So good for Lucas. Actually, everybody in our little, picks group took Jacksonville except for me. I look like a dope. I should have known better. The Jacksonville Jaguars absolutely clobber the Chargers 35-6. They improved to 6-4. They stay in the playoff picture. The Chargers fall to 7-4. Justin Herbert, woof, really, really rough performance by the Chargers quarterback. Just 81 yards passing and an interception. I don't know what got into him, but I do know what got into him. The Chargers offensive line is a legitimate issue, and I honestly think, Lucas, I'm going to say it right now, and if I'm wrong, I think the Chargers offensive line is going to prevent them from going to the playoffs. I just think any competent defensive line, which the Jaguars certainly have with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen, they're just going to tee off, and Herbert's going to have no time to throw. And that was the case in this game. And look, I'm not absolving Herbert, but he got no favors. He had nowhere to go with the ball. And Jacksonville just put it on him. And this was a pretty impressive performance by the Jaguars, considering that collapse they had in Houston a week ago. To come out like this on the ropes against a solid team, a playoff caliber team in your home building, and you absolutely blow them out. I think it's a sign that the culture's changing there a little bit. Like Liam Cohen is building a team that can weather the storm better than past iterations. Trevor Lawrence really didn't do much in this game. Really was just kind of a game manager. He didn't need to be honest. But Jacksonville's defense really just teed off of that brutal Chargers offensive line, which, like, when you lose guys like Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, it sinks a season. It turns out Mekhi Becton, when he's not playing next to Lane Johnson and being coached by Jeff Stoutland, isn't that good? I mean, he's been horrible this year. The whole line's been horrible. And I don't know if Justin Herbert's going to be healthy at the end of the year. I just think it's that bad. They're on a bye this week. We'll see if they can figure some things out. I think it's going to sink their season, and I think they'll be watching the playoffs in January if it gets to that point. I mean, even the Pittsburgh game, if Aaron Rodgers didn't play like Lucas Straczynski in that game, they would have lost that game too. So it's rough. It's a really difficult situation for the Chargers, and kudos to the Jags. Like that's a really, really big win for that team.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I actually don't think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs. After this week, I went through every single remaining game to make my picks, and I had the Chargers at 9-8. And they are the 10th seed in the AFC. I think they're going to be behind Pittsburgh and Houston, who's also going to miss the playoffs, according to me. And I think they're going to have to suffer the consequences because it's not their fault. So consequences is a bad word, but they don't have their starting tackles, and their offensive line wasn't that good outside of their tackles. And their team, frankly, wasn't that good outside of the tackles. Arguably, the best part of their team was their left and right tackle duo. Both those guys are gone. They're going to miss the playoffs, in my opinion. Jaguars, I'm thankfully I had faith in Liam Cohen and it paid off. I think Trevor Lawrence again was meh. I'm officially off the Trevor Lawrence bandwagon. I do think right now he's not a good quarterback. Maybe he'll turn it around at some point. And the Jacksonville offense actually looked pretty good without Brian Thompson, Travis Hunter. So I think that says a lot about Liam Cohen.
Yeah, he's done a good job this year. And again, Lawrence, not a great game, but he didn't need to be great when your defense allowed 6 points. So your playoff, your wild card teams to be clear: Buffalo, Kansas City, Jacksonville. Are those your wild card teams? Because you had Pittsburgh and Houston missing. You had the Chargers missing.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Jacksonville's the 6. Buffalo, Jacksonville, KC, and that over KC's the 7.
Gotcha. All right. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for those teams. It's going to be a really interesting playoff race down the stretch with 6 teams vying for 3 spots. It'll be very fun to watch. And for the Chargers, that's a bad sign of things to come. All right. Going out of the NFC North, Bears, Vikings. The Bears win their 7th out of 8 games. They beat Minnesota in US Bank Stadium 19-17 on a walk-off field goal by Cairo Santos. The Bears improved to 7-3 and now are currently sitting atop the NFC North. I did not see that coming a few weeks ago. The Vikings, their very, very frustrating season continues. They fall to 4-6. And a big storyline from this game was the performance of JJ McCarthy again. Really, really, really rough game for the Vikings young quarterback. There are 2 interceptions. He did come alive late. He did throw a go-ahead touchdown to Jordan Addison, but Chicago drove down the field. They kick a game winner. But for 58 minutes of this game, Lucas, J.J. McCarthy was garbage. He was awful against a defense in Chicago that's not very good. You're in your home building, and he had less than 100 yards. Did he even have 100 yards in this game? He had less than 100 yards
I
for most of this game. I'm pulling up his stat line right now. So McCarthy in this,
think he
okay,
did.
he completed half of his
150.
passes for 150 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. His quarterback rating was 47. JJ McCarthy this season is completing 53% of his passes for 842 yards, 6 touchdowns, 8 picks. His pass rating is 61. He has thrown for 200 yards once, and that was against the Ravens. Like, he just has been awful this season. And look, it's early. He started 5 games. I get it. But outside of that fourth quarter against Chicago and like little portions of the game against Detroit, he has looked like a quarterback that should not be starting. And I understand, look, Carson Wentz obviously was not the answer. Max Brosmer certainly not the answer. Former Minnesota Golden Gopher Lucas. But it's if I'm a Vikings fan, like they're kind of like your hometown team. They're like they're like a team that you watch. You have interest in as Lucas just destroys that water. That's besides the Chiefs, it's the team that you're most interested in. You'd be very concerned about your quarterback because this is pretty rough. If this does not get better, I don't know what the Vikings do other than just hope he uses the offseason to improve because he's in a pretty good situation. He has a good play caller. He has great receivers. The offensive line's not great, so that's a somewhat valid excuse. The running backs are pretty good. Lucas just loves that water. He's just downing it. But yeah, I mean, if the Vikings got like the quarterback play, they would have won, and they didn't. So
I love my hydration. What can I say? I'm like a
yeah,
guinea pig. I'll drink all my water at once. Yeah, I'm not gonna say much here. I think JJ McCarthy's been bad this year, but I'm not gonna panic. He's still only 22. He'll be 23 in like 3 months. So he's still pretty much a baby. And he missed his entire rookie year due to a physical injury. So he lost a year of development. I'm not going to panic. I do think the Vikings should come up with a better backup next year than Carson Wentz. I do believe in Max Brosmer as like a high level, as potential to be a high level backup. He was actually really good in Minnesota. I'm surprised he didn't get drafted earlier. He didn't get drafted at all. Like I'm kind of shocked he wasn't like a 6th-round pick. Like, but shows you what I know. I wasn't even being biased. I actually thought he was a draftable prospect. Yeah, I'm out of Minnesota. Like I just the defense is not quite as dominant as it was last year. It doesn't quite force as many turnovers. The offensive line is not as good as I thought it would be based on their offensive moves. In Chicago, they're winning games. Like they're kind of the opposite of last year, where
yeah,
that team last year was figuring out ways to lose games. This year, they're figuring out ways to win them. Not exactly like the most like sexy team, but they're winning. They're 7-3 and they're top the NFC North. So, I mean, I don't think they'd rather be in another spot right now.
yeah. And look, the Bears, like I still don't think the Bears are that good. If I'm being honest, just by watching them play, but like they're finding ways to show how much coaching makes a difference. Going from Matt Eberflus to Ben Johnson, I think clearly is paying its dividends. Look, Caleb Williams is steadily improving. You see flashes where it's like, okay, this is why this guy was so highly touted coming out of college and was picked first overall. Needs to be a little bit more consistent, but I mean, again, for the Vikings, you just got to hope McCarthy shows some stuff by the end of the year to give you some because they're probably not making the playoffs at this point. I'd be shocked if they do. They're not making the playoffs. It's over. It's not happening, especially in that division. So this season's about like seeing if McCarthy can improve to give you some hope for 2026. And kudos to the Bears. Like they're finding ways, although their schedule does get much tougher. So we'll see what the Bears are made of this next month and a half. All right, next game, Packers Giants. The Packers go up to the Meadowlands, defeat the Giants 27-20, thanks to a last-second touchdown pass from Jordan Love to Christian Watson. The Packers improved to 6-3-1. The Giants, another losing season, they fall to 2-9. Jameis Winston got the start, and it was typical Jameis. He made some nice throws. He moved the ball down the field, but in typical Jameis Winston fashion, he threw the game-losing interception in the end zone that cost the Giants the game. And they're going for the tie. Lucas, I know the stat line wouldn't say. I thought Jordan Love was excellent in this football game. He did leave with an injury for a little bit. Malik Willis came in and threw a touchdown. Jordan Love did not get a lot of help from his offensive line. He did not get a lot of help from his running game. He did not get a lot of help from his receivers. They had 7 drops. Romeo Doubs had a really rough game at the office, rough day at the office. But Jordan Love kind of put the cape on and showed like, yeah, I'm making $55 million. This is the type of game that I win. And he came up clutch at the end. Christian Watson made an awesome catch between 2 defenders. This is a game that the Packers had to win. Like, they didn't play very well throughout the course of it, but they escaped the Meadowlands with a win because it felt like if they lost, it felt like the vibes would have really, really gone down the drain. But they found a way to get it done, and that's what matters in the NFL. And as us Chiefs people know, what matters is scoring more points than the opponent when the clock hits 0. And it doesn't matter how it looks. It matters if you win. And the Packers won just by not playing great. The Giants, what's there to say? At least they're somewhat entertaining this year. But again, just another lost season for Big Blue. And as they look for their coach of the future in the offseason.
Yeah, I thought Jordan Love was excellent in this game. The box score is misleading. I don't care. He completed 54% of his passes or 174 yards. He 85% adjusted completion percentage, which does account for drops like batted passes, throwaways, stuff like that. And his average depth of target was 13.6 yards. So anytime you could have an 85% accuracy on an ADOT of over 13 yards, like you're having a good day at the office. He played very well. One of the best games of his career. Like, may not have had the volume, but the efficiency was off the charts. Jameis Winston, all right. More fun than Wilson, but sorry about that. I just had to sneeze. So, okay.
It's all good.
That's how I sneeze. So, congratulations, everyone. Yeah, I thought Micah Parsons had another excellent game. He had a couple sacks. Packers, I think, are a playoff team. I'm not convinced they're a Super Bowl team. The Giants are kind of rancid. They're missing their 2 best offensive players in Cam Scatabo and Malik Neighbors. So we'll see what they do. But Packers, great game by Jordan Love. Not convinced, still not sold on them anymore.
Yeah, like again, I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they have a shot to win the division, if we're being honest. But this is a big game for Jordan Love. He had a rough 2-game stretch in home losses. This is a big game for him and his confidence to show what he's capable of. He's a very talented quarterback. And he showed it in this game. Yeah, and for the Giants, it's just you hope for fun, close losses at this point, because they currently have the 2nd overall pick as it stands. All right, speaking of Packers quarterbacks, the Steelers beat the Bengals 34-12. They improved to 6-4 to stay atop the AFC North. The Bengals, their lost season continues. They fall to 3-7 as the excitement of Joe Burrow potentially coming back kind of dissipated with this one. Joe Flacco turned back into a pumpkin in this game. They had an opening drive touchdown and did absolutely nothing for the rest of the game. They had some field goals, but who cares? The game really turned when Flacco threw an absolute meatball to Kyle Duggar, which was returned for a pick 6. And the Steelers never really looked back as that went on. Really good defensive performance for Pittsburgh. Their defense quietly has really kind of turned it around these last 3 games, holding down an offense that had been, scoring at will or over the last several outings. But the big story was Aaron Rodgers did not finish the game. He left at halftime with a left wrist injury. It turns out he will not need surgery. It's not a long-term injury. It's a kind of 50-50 to see if he'll play next week. Rodgers was not exactly playing great before he got hurt. He did throw a touchdown in the opening drive to Kenneth Gainwell, but he was just 9 of 15 for 116 yards, 1 touchdown, quarterback rating of 106. Not as bad as he was against the Chargers, but nothing spectacular for Rodgers before he left the game. Mason Rudolph came in, was competent, did his job, led 2 scoring drives. A lot of it was yak. A lot of it was dump downs. If you watch, Kenneth Gainwell had a nice game in the receiving standpoint. Darnell Washington made some plays. So, look, I still don't think the Steelers are anywhere close to a contender. I think they're a pretty run-of-the-mill team, but they found a way to win. Their defense is turning it around, and they're still, like I said, they're holding off the Ravens in that division. And the Bengals, like, there's not much to say about them. Flacco turned back into a pumpkin, kind of predictable, and they're going nowhere. The Bengals might be the most directionless team in the NFL at this point. I just don't know where this thing goes after this season.
Yeah, Bengals, their defense sucks. They won't have Jamar Chase next week, and I don't know. There's like,
I forgot to mention. Yeah, I forgot to mention Jamar Chase spit at Jalen Ramsey. So nice job, way to go. Keep going, Lucas. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna fire Zach Taylor because they don't want to pay him money to not coach because they're cash poor. But yeah, the Bengals are pretty much screwed. The Steelers, they're worse with Mason Rudolph, but hopefully Aaron Rodgers can get back. It's his non-throwing hand, I believe you said, is his left hand, so he
It
shouldn't
is, yeah.
be out too long. But it's still a significant wrist injury. It's a hand injury nonetheless. T.J. Watt has been quietly not very good the last 2 weeks, and he's had a down year. Like hopefully he can turn it on, because if the Steelers want any hope of still making the playoffs, they're going to need T.J. Watt to be the T.J. Watt of old.
Yeah, TJ Watt didn't have a great game. He has 6 sacks this year. He's actually 1 sack away from passing his brother on the all-time sack list, so we'll see if that happens. But the big performer of this game was Kyle Duggar with the pick six. James Pierre, their reserve corner, had a really, really nice game on Jamar Chase. So the Steelers, defensively, that's one thing. If you're a Steelers fan, you're encouraged by okay, this is the defense that we thought we would be getting over these last 3 games against two good offenses in the Colts and the Bengals. The Chargers, not so much. But I do think they're pretty limited on offense. Again, Rodgers, I do think the last handful of games has not been great. I definitely think he showed his age a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next week if it's Rodgers or Rudolph in Chicago on Sunday. So the Steelers, 6-4, atop the AFC North still. All right, Lucas, we don't need to spend a lot of time in this game. The Texans beat the Titans 16-13. The Texans stay in the playoff race. They improved to 5-5. The Titans suck. That's all I have. I don't really have much more to add, if I'm being honest.
Yep, Texans just needed to win without C.J. Stroud, and they won without C.J. Stroud, so they're happy.
Yeah. All right, moving on. That game, we don't need to acknowledge. All right, this game again, pretty uneventful. Niners Cardinals. The Niners win 41-22. They improved to 7-4. The Cardinals fall to 3-7. The big storyline was Brock Purdy return. He played very well. He threw 3 touchdowns. Another quiet storyline. Jacoby Brissett completed 47 passes, the single game NFL record. Threw for well over 400 yards. A lot of it was garbage time stat padding, so who cares? The Cardinals are going nowhere this year. There's not much to talk about there. We don't know who their quarterback's going to be next year. And the Niners, despite all their injuries, stay very much in the playoff race. And Brock Purdy definitely showed it was a good performance for him coming back from his absence.
Yep. Congrats to Jacoby Brissett on his record-setting performance, and shout out to Michael Wilson for carrying me to a fantasy victory this week. And he recorded 33.5 points despite not scoring a single touchdown. I imagine that's a fantasy record, but I haven't done my research. And so shout out to him. Good thing Marvin Harrison got hurt, because I'm not glad he got hurt, but he hasn't done much this year for me fantasy-wise. So Michael Wilson comes off the bench 1 week and pretty much beats out anything Marvin Harrison has ever done in his career. So shout out to him. But yeah, San Francisco, I think they're heating up. I think they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think they're going to win the division. That loss to LA is kind of going to bury them, but I think they'll be a wild card team, and maybe they'll make some noise and be kind of a frisky team in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, missing guys like Warner and Bosa won't help, but Purdy gives them a higher ceiling than Mac Jones did, who, to his credit, played very well in his stead. All right, next game, staying in the NFC West. This is a bigger game. Rams-Seahawks. The Rams beat Seattle 21-19 to improve to 8-2. They take over the NFC West. Seattle falls to 7-3. And the big story was the performance of Sam Darnold. Throws 4 interceptions. Sam Darnold just hates playing the Rams. But I think a bigger storyline is Sam Darnold's played in 3 really big games over the last 2 seasons, and he's been awful in all of them. I think that's pretty concerning if you're a Seattle fan. The Rams showing that they're a contender. I do think their offense was pretty held down. Stafford did not have a great game. Seattle's defense is very good to be fair. But how concerned would you be if you're a Seattle fan about Darnold's performance? Because it feels like the bigger the game, he kind of crumbles a little bit. He's going to light up the Titans this week. I have no doubt about that. But 4 interceptions, they were all his fault. They're all bad throws. Do you think it's a one-off, or do you think it's kind of a thing to monitor going forward?
I think it's something to monitor. I thought Sam Darnold was playing at an MVP level until the last couple weeks. And like you said, 4 picks, all of them his fault. He was atrocious. He was 3 of 12 on passes past the sticks, past more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. No drops, so you can't blame anything on drops. He only had 2 throwaways, 1 batted pass, 1 hissy threw. Pretty inefficient day, horrible day. But That's what it is. Got to hope the Seahawks fans got to hope he bounces back because they have another key game coming up against San Francisco. So, and they play the Rams again. So better hope he locks in. I don't care what his linebacker says. Sam Darnold was atrocious in this game. Yeah, he got him in a position to win, but he almost blew the game. If you remember, they ran the
Oh
play with
yeah.
4 seconds left, and he pump faked it. Like I thought one too many times in real time. I was like, oh, what is he doing? Thankfully, they got it off, but Jason Myers couldn't make the kick. I think the Seahawks are going to win the next 3 games because they have the Titans, Vikings, and Falcons, so they're probably going to go 3-0. But Sam Darnold kind of not playing well in big games is becoming a trend, and so let's just hope that doesn't continue.
Yeah, if you're a Seattle fan. And then for the Rams, like I think the Rams are probably the best team in football right now. Stafford has played an MVP level all year. Defensively, they've really turned a corner. Because that was kind of their weakness the last couple seasons. They're every bit of a contender, and we'll see if they can continue it going forward. They have a huge game against Tampa on Sunday. So, and look, both of us picked them to go to the Super Bowl in our midseason picks, and they showed why in this game. They held down a team that was dominating teams in that game on Sunday afternoon. So the Rams 8-2, they continue to roll. All right, Lucas, this is a game that was talked about more than it should have because of a certain quarterback. The Ravens and the Browns. The Ravens win their fourth straight game to improve to 5-5 to get back in contention to win that division. 23-16. The Browns fall to 2-8. The story is not the game. Look, for the Ravens, their offense was putrid in this game. Lamar Jackson was awful, awful in this football game. Myles Garrett continues to have one of the best seasons defensive players ever had. He had 4 sacks. But it all went to waste. The Browns defense is a shame. They deserve better because that's a really good unit, and they're being wasted by a really, really bad offense. Look, Dylan Gabriel left the game at halftime with a concussion, and Shador Sanders made his debut, and he went 4 of 16 for an interception, took some really bad sacks. The interception he threw actually wasn't costly because Lamar gave it right back. But the Browns had the ball down 7. And Shador, to his credit, made a nice throw to the end zone to the receiver's hands, number 84. I have no idea who that guy is. Lammerwall or whatever his name is. I have no clue. I had no idea that guy existed. Cheeto Awuzie knocks the ball out of his hands. It falls incomplete. 4th down, they don't get it, and the Ravens win. Shador will start against the Raiders next on Sunday. Luke say will preview that. I just think the discourse about this was really weird. I mean, can we just say, like, he was a backup quarterback. He played badly. It's fine. Like, it's his first game against a good team. Like, we don't need to make this whole groupthink thing about, like, Shador Sanders. I'm not going to get too far into it because we don't need to spend a lot of time. I just think the discourse was very, 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 very strange. I feel like people shouldn't be talking about a 2-8 team on the morning talk shows. And for the Ravens, look, it was an ugly win, but they got it done. I'm not overly concerned about Lamar. I just think it was a bad game against a good defense, and they get the Jets at home. So you'd think they'd get back to above 500 for the first time all season, believe it or not, on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that they won and Lamar Jackson played like crap because that's not going to happen most of the time. So maybe Lamar had his one down game the rest of the year. Better hope. Sure, Sanders, you can blame whether it was lack of preparation or a bad offensive line. He sucked in that game. Like, he went 4 of 16, 3 turnover-worthy plays. He had one drop that entire game, and I don't think they marked that deep shot to the end zone as a drop, which I agree that was not technically a drop. It was an accurate pass, but it was
It
not
was
a
a good
drop.
play by. It was a really good play by
Nonetheless,
Awuzie, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But nonetheless, he sucked. Like, hopefully with more preparation. But I never bought into him as like a bona fide first round pick. I thought it was like a second round pick, and he's playing like a second round rookie in a bad situation. So I'm not saying he's going to be bad forever, but I do think some of the discourse with some of his supporters, like kind of pretending he played well or like he has to take no accountability, is not doing him any good. And he did not want to go to the Ravens this year because he wanted an opportunity to start, and which is pretty ironic because guess whose quarterback got hurt? Baltimore. So would have been a better situation, but yeah, Baltimore, they're back to 500. I think they're to win the AFC North. I know they're the favorites. Now I think they're the heavy favorites. We'll see if Pittsburgh can hold on, but I think Baltimore has that division on lock, even though they're technically in second place.
Yeah, the Ravens are currently the 10 seed in the AFC. And look, their next two games are the Jets and the Bengals. Like you'd think, barring a disaster, they should get to 7-5. Although Joe Burrow could be playing against them on Thanksgiving. We'll see what happens there. And look, the Browns, their defense is great, but their team is awful. They're going nowhere this year, as has been the case for much of their existence, if we're being honest. All right, Lucas. You know what, Lucas? Should we skip over the Chiefs game and spend time on it tomorrow? I'm thinking that might not be a bad idea to save our energy on that game tomorrow because I don't want
Yeah,
to risk going on a rant. We're going to save the Chiefs Broncos game for tomorrow. The Chiefs rant will occur on the Wednesday show. So we'll go through the primetime games real quick. Lucas, do you agree with that or do you have any pushback there?
I, nope, I agree. Let's move on. We'll talk about the Chiefs plenty tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the plan. All right, Lucas is running on fumes here. All right, Sunday night football, ugly football
Yeah.
game. The Eagles beat the Lions 16-9. They improved to 8-2. They remain the 1 seed in the NFC. The Lions fall to 6-4. Again, the Eagles defense has really carried them these last two games. They scored 2 touchdowns in 2 games. Their offense just looks really disjointed at times. Like they have one good drive a game, it seems like, and other than that, it's just really just uninspiring. But their defense looks like a team that's ready to win the Super Bowl again. Jared Goff was abysmal in this football game. He was 2 of his last 18 passing the football, and all the concerns about Jared Goff playing in cold weather was really solidified in this one. Really bad performance by the Lions quarterback. And a big storyline was Dan Campbell going for all those fourth downs. The Lions came up empty on all of them. The Eagles were able to hold firm. So, look, like I like Dan Campbell. I like his aggressiveness, but at a certain time, just take the points. I get it. I get you're playing to win. But in a game like that, where like every point matters, you take the points. You take the points and you move on. Lucas, I know you're the resident Eagles hater here. But I just think the 2025 Eagles are the 2024 Chiefs with a better defense and more talented, but a worse offense because their offense just has too many games where they're just uninspiring as hell. Jalen Hurts was bad in this game. But defensively, like if they can play like that, they can get back to the Super Bowl. And for the Lions, like, I don't know. I'd be concerned if I was a Lions fan because not every game's gonna be played in Ford Field. And this has been a trend throughout Jared Goff's entire career.
Yeah, I think Dan Campbell kind of fell in the gambler's fallacy where like as soon as he was like 0-3 on 4 down, he's like, okay, we can't possibly miss 4 in a row. And after he went 0-4, he's like, we can't possibly miss a fifth in a row. Went 0 for 5. Like, I don't really say I blame him. Like, I'd say, but given the Lions' offense, given how talented it is, they're not going to go 0-5 very often. Maybe most games will go 2-5. So I can't really say I blame him that much. But yeah, hindsight's 2020 in a defensive style game. You probably take the points. Like, but at the same time, points are not guaranteed. Philadelphia is a tough place to kick. So I'm just going to remind people that field goals like greater than 35 yards are not automatic like people think. But at the same time, he should have kicked the field goals because that turns out to be the right decision. Just like if he went for the fourth downs and got him, that was the right decision. But he didn't get him, and it was so by definition it was the wrong decision. Eagles, I think, have to be the favorite in the NFC. They're the defending champs, and they have the best record in the AFC. In the NFC, I believe. Yeah, every other team has 2 losses, so good for them.
All righty. Yes. Lucas complimenting the Eagles is not something we'll see often on this show. But look, like I said, we talked about this way for the Chiefs last year, so the Eagles deserve the same credit. All right, Lucas, we don't need to spend a ton of time on the game last night. The Cowboys win 33-16. They improved to 4-5-1. The Raiders are one of the worst teams I've ever seen. They're 2-8. They're awful. Look, Dak was awesome in the game. George Pickens had a great game. Defensively, they played better. Quentin Williams played well in his Cowboys debut. Again, it is the Raiders, so the litmus test is not exactly outstanding. But it's two teams that are not going to be in the playoffs. The Raiders definitely won't. The Cowboys probably won't. Um, it's a good performance for Dallas. I mean, it's an emotional performance given the tragic passing of Marshawn Nealand a couple weeks ago. So they came out inspired. They came out playing for their former teammate, and it showed. Like it was a good, inspiring performance by the Cowboys. They got a big win to at least keep their season alive for the time being. But ultimately, Lucas, it's just two teams that ultimately just don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. We'll see if Dallas can maybe turn around. Their schedule down the stretch is not particularly difficult. But I just think the NFC is too crowded for them to get in the playoffs. And the Raiders they're just an absolute dog of a team. They're not worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean the Raiders, horrific game run blocking for Ashton Genty, only like 6 carries, 7 yards. So horrible performance by him. I'm actually pretty grateful for that because I faced my brother in fantasy this week in the same league that Michael Wilson won me. Went into the game, my brother with George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and Ashton Genty, needing them to combine for less than 45 points. They went for like 42 points combined. So happy for that. And I'm also glad Dallas decided to knee it out with well over 2 minutes left. That's the second time that's happened to the Raiders in a month. That also happened in Kansas City when they got shut out. So thankful for Brian Schottenheimer for not trying to give CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens another touchdown. So I'm happy for that game. Raiders, they're a disaster. Geno Smith, big mistake. Big mistake. He's done. Pete Carroll, he's washed. It was just a weird fit to begin with Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. Like with Pete Carroll, you would think he wants to run the ball. Chip Kelly's more of a high tempo passing guy, but they hired him, so I guess they were compatible. But that roster stinks. Other than like Brock Bowers, they have a good left tackle. Genty is talented, and Max Crosby, who's not having that good of a year. He was great last night, but quietly been like good and not great, like not even close to a Pro Bowl level. That roster just sucks. Like other than like their top stars, full speed are as good as anyone. Like Max Crosby is like a top 5 pass rusher. Brock Bowers is a top 1 tight end. Ashton Genty could be in a couple years the best running back in football. So like I guess like where their stars are stars, where their stars are like really stars, but like their entire roster is just dog crap. The rest in all other aspects. And the Cowboys are fun to watch. They have a high-powered passing offense, but not a very well-built team. We'll see if Quinn and Williams culture on that defensive line. But yeah, I don't believe that was. I don't think this need like 7 or 1.
Yeah, and like the Raiders, like the Pete Carroll thing just didn't work. I mean, great career. He's just too old to be coaching at this point in his career, and obviously the Geno Smith trade did not pay off in the slightest. All right, Lucas and I are ready to hit the hay. That wraps up our recap of Week 11. We will be back tomorrow earlier in the day with much more energy, much more vigor to talk about the overarching storyline. We'll talk about the Chiefs-Broncos game as well as other storylines around the NFL, such as the Jamar Chase incident. We briefly touched on it here. And then, of course, we'll give our picks for Week 12. All right. For Lucas, for everybody watching, that wraps up this episode. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you.